2020年1月1日，除夕至新年期間，印尼低地首都雅加達發生自1866年共154年有紀錄以嚟最大嘅暴雨，甚至觸發近7年以嚟最大傷亡嘅洪水。雅加達及西爪哇山區出現破紀錄377毫米季候暴雨，河水泛濫淹浸169個住宅區，近郊地區發生山泥傾瀉，道路被淹浸成小河，有汽車被沖走，甚至有民眾喺路上划艇。市內部分地區水深2.5米，多座房屋幾近被淹沒，有人坐喺屋頂等候救援。逾6.2萬人疏散至臨時避難所。事件造成超過20多人死亡，主要因為山泥傾瀉、遇溺及低溫症，亦有人喺水浸街道上觸電而死。國家抗災處發言人維伯沃表示，印尼當地已動員12萬救援人員救災，並喺市內緊急加裝去水泵。
It's the worst flooding in Jakarta in almost 7 years, triggered by heavy monsoon rains that lashed the Indonesian capital and nearby cities on New Year's Eve. The rain submerged homes, displacing thousands and claiming lives, including that of a 16-year-old boy who died electrocuted by a power line.
My son's body had been covered with newspaper. My other children passed by, and people asked them whether they knew the victim. If they hadn't walked by, we wouldn't have known my son had been killed.
To prevent further electrocutions, Indonesia's state electricity utility switched off power to hundreds of waterlogged districts across Jakarta, home to about 30 million people. At least 19,000 people have been displaced in temporary shelters after floodwaters reached up to 3 meters in several neighborhoods. Jakarta's international airport was also shut down, its runway flooded. Authorities have deployed more than 120,000 rescuers. Indonesia's National Disaster Mitigation Agency has called on residents to leave flood-hit areas and has warned that further flooding is still expected, with downpours forecast for the coming days. The last flood of this magnitude in the region dates back to January 2013, when several dozen people were killed.
國家災害管理局指，西爪哇省共97處洪水發生點，其中萬丹省最為嚴重，有數以千計房屋被洪水淹沒，數以千計畜生失蹤。雅加達省長阿尼斯稱，政府已設立臨時避難所，安置咗約2萬名無家可歸嘅災民。街上所見盡係泥濘及瓦礫，翻覆嘅汽車。當局正努力清理水退後街上堆積嘅垃圾。
This muddy splish-splosh is now a familiar sound across Indonesia's washed-out communities. After the worst flooding in 6 years hit the Greater Jakarta area earlier this week, the water levels have now started to recede. And things are being put back the right way up and back in their proper place. As a mammoth cleanup gets underway, residents have all been taking stock.
I didn't manage to leave with all of my possessions. I've lost the stall that I run. My house is still there, but the windows and doors have gone.
Here in Lebak, rescue teams have been using a dinghy and a length of rope to pull stranded residents to safety. Around a dozen locals in total are still unaccounted for after the record levels of rain hit the region on New Year's Eve and in the days that followed. Some 192,000 evacuees have been forced to sleep in temporary accommodation, but food and clean water there are running low, and many worry about disease. Thousands of soldiers and health workers have fanned out to deliver much-needed medication and food supplies, while the government has begun the process of cloud seeding to the west of the capital.
洪水導致機場、鐵路、公路等交通設施大受影響。雅加達哈尼姆機場自1月1日凌晨30分臨時關閉後，進港航班只能降落喺鄰近機場，機場快運等多架列車停駛，高速公路多個進出口封閉，市區大量汽車被浸到水裡面，甚至被洪水沖走，全市大範圍停電，超市蔬菜及食品被搶購。由於極端天氣持續，當地一間科技公司表示，已準備好2架小型飛機， 以人工方式射鹽打散雨雲。截至1月7日，印尼國家抗災處通報，災害造成至少67人死亡，係自2013年雅加達雨季造成57人被暴雨淹死後，死亡人數最嚴重嘅一次洪水，超過39萬人流離失所。雅加達周邊縣市陸續宣布進入緊急狀態，連日救援已成功救出1000多名與世隔絕數日嘅體弱村民，但由於不少遭山泥活埋仍未救出，當局估計遇難人數仍會上升。1月1日，加拿大皮斯省迎來新年大暴雪，氣象局指強勁太平洋風暴逼近溫哥華，各地持續有暴雨及暴雪，部分地區積雪已高至淹沒民眾窗戶。皮斯水力電力系統早前於聖誕後嘅暴風雪中損毀，一度有10萬戶面臨斷電，緊急搶修後恢復咗60% 電力，但新年突如其來嘅暴雪再次導致3.4萬戶眾停電。雖然電力公司已加緊搶修，但風雪堵塞道路，阻礙搶修進度。
On the Coquihalla Highway, close to the summit, near whiteout conditions Thursday night.
You can see everywhere this snow everywhere. I can't see the lines in the road. This is a very bad condition right now.
Last hour, it's just visibility is bad, but the traction seems to be okay, but it's just so slow going.
Pounding snow and extremely poor visibility make the drive treacherous. Near Merritt, there are several crashes and numerous vehicles slide off the road.
Rollovers, multiple accidents, basically everything. The way people are driving, the ice, the snow, the visibility, just gets nasty.
At one point, after more than 3/4 of a meter of snow has fallen, all 3 highways to the interior are closed. And on Highway 1, a rock slide comes down north of China Bar Tunnel.
The worst I've ever seen.
On the other side of the Coquihalla, in Hope, dozens of motorists waited out.
氣象局警告，喺暴雪同強風下，溫哥華預料持續降雪，最低溫度達到零下13度，將迎來25厘米嘅降雪。溫哥華北部同本拿比山等海拔較高嘅地區受影響最嚴重，大雪導致廣泛地區交通癱瘓及阻塞。喺極端嘅降雪天氣下，市政人員已進入作戰狀態。
When it came to traveling today, TransLink had 2 words of advice for commuters: stay put.
Our advice is to reconsider travel if that is possible. If people do have to travel, they should try and consider whether off-peak periods are an option.
Usually it takes like 1.5 hours. Today it's almost like 2 hours. It's still going on.
The next train wasn't due for more than half an hour, and it was quite slow. They were traveling slowly, and it was very crowded.
SkyTrains were delayed across the entire network, tracks covered with snow and ice, and doors frozen shut, forcing attendants to come up with creative solutions to pry them open. It doesn't get much more Canadian than this unique tool, and the transit service wasn't afraid to ask passengers for help.
If you do see the train trying to leave with the store open, please try to get the door shut.
Oh, it took about 20 minutes to load because of extreme severe weather.
Elsewhere, buses struggled to make it up hills and across bridges.
On the way, I saw one of the 99s was stuck on Arbutus, so the people from that bus got off and got on our bus.
Because the sidewalks have snow all over it, the bus has to kind of be out on the street because there's no clear on the sidewalk for people to get off.
And the ones that kept moving, some of them were delayed as long as 90 minutes. Despite the challenges, many were still determined to go about their business as normally as possible. But snow continues to accumulate, and so TransLink is warning of more delays and closures to come. They're asking travelers to check their Twitter account and Alerts website for the latest updates.
2019年12月30日，俄羅斯北極圈城市洛里爾斯克一輛巴士喺漫天風雪下嘅公路上拋錨。當時大雪風速高達每秒27米，乘客嘗試關窗，但雪花仍然從損壞咗嘅窗吹入嚟。車內20多名穿着連帽厚大衣嘅乘客喺攝氏零下26度氣温下吹風近40分鐘，凍成雪人。 有網民留言指呢一輛應該係全世界最凍嘅巴士。另有洛里爾斯克市民則半帶諷刺說：呢個就係我哋市嘅巴士，暖氣常壞，窗戶玻璃冇影，歡迎親臨嚟感受一下。1月8日，位於熱帶地區嘅印度北部喺極端天氣下竟然下起大雪，經歷自1997年以嚟最長、最嚴重嘅寒冷天氣，已經持續咗半個多月。哈扎米爾、喜馬加爾同北方邦等地區氣溫更一度降至零下7度。強烈寒潮席捲印度北部大部分地區，惡劣天氣導致幾趟開往德里嘅火車同首都國際機場嘅航班大面積延誤，公交線路中斷同堵塞。由於印度地區極少有政府中央供應嘅暖氣，好多準備不足嘅居民需要匆忙購買保暖衣物。多間零售商表示，即使加熱電器嘅價格已經提高，但每日一開門仍然被搶購一空，大部分品牌都已經售罄。印地當局居民表示，希望呢場寒潮可以盡快結束，盡快回歸正常嘅生活。1月13日，遭強降雪侵襲嘅印度北部發生雪崩，加上巴勒斯坦控制嘅哈扎米爾地區北端山谷落大雪，引發多處山泥傾瀉及雪崩，多名村民被困及失蹤，部分恐怕已經喪生。該省7處宣布進入緊急狀態，當局仍在搜救並尋求軍隊協助救援。接連巴勒斯坦同阿富汗嘅主要公路受大雪影響而封閉，阻擋必需品嘅運送進度。雪崩造成至少57人死亡，連同印度所控制嘅地區，共錄得至少67人死亡，其中5名係士兵。當局報告指，至少有84間房屋、17間企業被完全摧毀，另有1座清真寺部分被毀，至少有100人喺屋裏面被埋或沖走。1月10日，美國南部遭颶風級別嘅狂風、龍捲風及冰雹吹襲，4000萬人受影響。其中，南部南卡羅來納州以北嘅黑潮縣受一股時速209公里嘅龍捲風吹襲，一座校園設施遭嚴重破壞。建築物幾乎被夷平，20多輛校巴被波及。
This gives you a sense of just how powerful these storms are sweeping across Southeast America. Buildings have gone, trees ripped out, homes destroyed. Winds in excess of 100 miles per hour leaving a trail of destruction, and many families counting the cost of the damage caused.
Devastated, scared, trees, houses gone. And I went to check on all the neighbors and they were still in the houses, you know. Yeah.
Your family's okay?
They're fine.
The storm took out the wall of this building and the classroom roof of this school. The wild weather resulting in tens of thousands being without power and causing severe damage in several US states, including here in Texas.
I was just astonished at what had happened. I mean, I knew that it was loud, but I didn't know that it was this bad.
And as the clear-up operation begins, they'll be hoping conditions don't get any worse. But with major flooding now a growing concern for many communities, the ordeal for some may not be over yet.
另外，德薩斯州約有3.5萬戶民眾停電。當晚，達拉斯沃士堡國際機場有445個航班取消，另有545個航班延誤。美國國家海洋同大氣管理局氣候預測中心警告，數據顯示俄克拉荷馬州南部、德州中東部等地均有惡劣天氣，陣風風速預計可達1級颶風時速129公里，並伴隨直徑大約2.5厘米嘅冰雹。除上述地區，路易斯安那州、阿肯色州等地亦有狂風暴雨。政府呼籲民眾留喺家中，警告如非必要，切勿冒險出行。
Wild weather tearing across the country, leaving a trail of deadly destruction. Tornadoes and high winds slamming homes in Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama as people were sleeping. Wind so strong, an elderly couple's mobile home was pushed 200 feet off its foundation. Sadly, firefighters there in Louisiana finding the bodies nearby. More than half a dozen people across 3 states were killed, damaging winds, large hail, and flooding. And that snow in Dallas, take a look, all part of a major storm system sweeping the country. More than 80 million Americans at risk tonight in that rough weather, stretching from the Gulf Coast all the way to Maine. And this just in, 2 first responders killed on an icy highway. Tornado watches are still in effect right now. ABC's Kaylee Hartung in hot Louisiana, where a tornado tore through the town in the middle of the night.
Tonight, deadly tornadoes striking the south as a massive storm system slams Texas to Maine, killing more than half a dozen people. More than 80 million people under weather alerts, including tornadoes and powerful winds, to snow and torrential rain. Damaging winds knocking trees onto cars, ripping down power lines in Chicago. Heavy rains flooding streets. More than 300,000 customers without power across 8 states. A possible tornado ripping through Pickens County, Alabama, leaving at least 3 people dead. An EF2 tornado shredding homes, snapping giant trees like twigs in Bossier Parish, Louisiana. An elderly couple killed when their trailer was ripped off its foundation here and flung 50 yards. The tornado hitting in the middle of the night. Police drone video showing the path of destruction.
I didn't think it was of this magnitude. To wake up and see the news this morning was really sad.
Wicked winds toppling this tree onto this home in Oil City, killing 1 person inside. Authorities surveying the damage left behind. And tragedy in Texas after a 1-2 punch. A firefighter and police officer killed while working this crash on an icy interstate in Lubbock. High winds tearing the canopy off this gas station in Houston. And just hours after the thunderstorms roared through, snow started falling, drivers navigating slushy streets. The Dallas-Fort Worth area seeing its first measurable snow for the first time in 3 years.
Dangerous weather all across the country. Kaylee Hartung joins us now from the scene in Houghton. And Kaylee, the tornado that you're covering there hit overnight, and you've been surveying the damage all day?
That's right, Tom. An EF2 tornado tore this street apart, a tree slicing this home behind me in half, and just next door, this home spared from serious damage. But every family here has work to do. Folks here telling me as soon as the sun came up, they fired up their chainsaws and started helping each other clear the debris, and as the sun goes down, you can still hear those chainsaws at work.
另一方面，1月10日，日本北海道今個冬天降雪異常減少。自去年12月，降雪量不到往年嘅一半，只有往年嘅 48%， 創歷年新低，係自1961年開始有統計以嚟最少嘅一年。冇錯，1961年正正就係日華牧師出生嘅年份。反常天氣導致札幌市積雪量僅只有9厘米，連四川都冇，較往年同期嘅44厘米大幅減少。由於降雪不足，影響原定於1月31日每年一度嘅札幌雪祭。往年雪祭需要3000輛10噸重大貨車嘅雪量製作冰雕，但今年札幌市內及近郊均無法提供充分雪量，因此當局必須派出比以往多出1倍嘅貨車，即120輛貨車往30公里外嘅區之安丁及京極丁等地取雪，務求趕上製作冰雕吸引旅客。除咗反常極端天氣之外，1月3日，美國阿拉斯加州阿留申群島一座希沙爾丁火山爆發，灰燼直衝高空逾2萬英尺，形成火山灰雲。隨後，火山灰雲往東南方海面漂移。美國國家氣象局發布火山灰雲警戒，警告高空2.4萬英尺嘅飛機注意安全。1月12日，菲律賓塔亞爾火山爆發，大量火山灰衝上14公里高空。當局將方圓17公里範圍列為危險地區，因擔心再有災難級嘅爆發，要求40萬居民疏散。大家確實冇聽錯，係40萬居民需要緊急疏散。目前已有超過1.64萬居民搬到臨時庇護所，預計數目會繼續增加。菲律賓火山地震研究所將塔亞爾火山嘅警告等級從1級提升至4級，僅次於最嚴重嘅5級。代表數小時至數天內可能會發生危險嘅爆發。當局警告，甚至可能會引起火山海嘯，提醒附近居民做好預防措施，防範火山周邊湖泊水位上漲。
A rare sight, volcanic lightning offering a glimpse at the thick plume filling the air. Up to 10,000 people forced from their homes, and low visibility and ash led to dozens of cancellations at Manila's international airport. The Taal volcano eruption has blasted steam, ash, and rock, covering area 15 kilometers away. This volcanologist says things could get much worse.
If it continues, we could start to transition into a purely magmatic, so really just the magma underneath that's driving this erupting out and sending much larger volumes of ash into the air.
Following the eruption, several minor earthquakes, with more expected. Nearly 60 kilometers south of Manila on the island of Luzon, Taal is among 24 active volcanoes in the Philippines alone, and one of many in the Pacific Ring of Fire. But Taal has some distinctive characteristics.
Almost like a Russian doll, we have a volcanic island, which is just the tip of a volcano sitting within a huge lake, about 25 by 30 kilometers. And that lake itself is within a much bigger volcano, what we call a caldera.
There are no reports of deaths or injuries, but breathing in volcanic ash is dangerous, so evacuees wear masks and goggles for safety.
當地官員擔心持續噴發嘅蒸汽及火山灰或會重演1754年嘅災難，並且持續數月甚至數年。當局預料最壞情況將會來臨。顯然，踏入2020年後，全球極端天氣仍未有任何消減跡象。單2020年1月，全球大自然災難已不斷刷新過往10年嘅紀錄，為整個啟示錄級數嘅災難揭開序幕。